Hogwarts. My four-dimensional trash bag. Chapter 81. Who wants to go to Slytherin? I certainly don't want to be there. How about you? James asked the boy sitting leisurely opposite him. This boy was handsome, and his clothes were as refined and luxurious as James's. It was clear at a glance that they shared a similar background, both were wealthy and noble. That is your father, James Potter, Snape explained to Harry, his tone imbued with undisguised distaste. And his self-proclaimed most loyal friend, Sirius Black. When he mentioned Sirius Black, Snape nearly ground his teeth, seemingly hating him even more than James. Sirius. Don't mention his name. Snape interrupted Harry irritably, but then felt it was inappropriate, so he added, he betrayed your parents, allowing the dark, allowing Voldemort to find your home. There is no more contemptible scumbag in the world than him. Voldemort shouldn't have been able to find you originally. Snape leaned back slightly against the chair, as if exhausted. Harry silently watched the unpleasant first meeting of the four people on the projected screen. The image vanished as Snape and Lily left the compartment. Perhaps I shouldn't have told you this so early, Harry. Snape felt regretful. This matter was indeed too heavy for Harry to bear. But I would have found out sooner or later. Harry shook her head. She was not as fragile as she looked. Like her mother, Lily, Harry possessed a core of bravery and resilience. Then let's look at how your mother performed at school. At this, a faint smile unintentionally touched the corner of Snape's mouth. In the eyes of all the professors, your mother was an outstanding and excellent witch. All the professors liked her, even the most critical Professor Slughorn, and he was a terrible snob. In Snape's memory, Lily was the brightest one in the crowd. Although they were sorted into different houses, they often chatted together shortly after arriving at Hogwarts. Snape would enthusiastically share his discoveries in potions, and their relationship was once very close. All of this confirmed the fact that Snape was Lily's good friend. Snape recalled these warm memories very seriously, but when the clock struck 11, he stopped playing the memory. That will be all for today. Snape spoke calmly, but the depths of his eyes were anything but. As the person involved, he knew best that as time passed, he gradually reduced his meetings with Lily and instead started associating with people in Slytherin House, studying things that Lily disliked, such as the dark arts. Snape was human, and naturally, he had his own self-interest. He didn't want his image to completely collapse in front of Harry, even though he was unwilling to deceive Harry, who looked 80 or 90% like Lily. You should head back to your dormitory and rest. Go on. Snape nodded at Harry, but as Lynn stood up, he reached out and pressed down on his shoulder, leaning close to whisper in his ear, take care of Harry. You two are good friends, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. Lynn nodded. Actually, she can take care of herself, Professor. Don't worry too much. Perhaps. Snape waved his hand, and a book flew from the shelf into his grasp. You can look at this when you have time. He tucked the book into Lynn's arms and released his hand, allowing him to leave. Go now. You need to rest. What did Professor Snape say to you? After walking a short distance, Harry walked backward in front of Lynn, her hands clasped behind her back. He gave me a book, probably his notes or something. I didn't look closely. Oh. Harry nodded. Right, Lynn, what do you think of my father? A blonde delinquent riding a ghost fire who stole the school's beloved beauty queen. Lynn shrugged. He wasn't particularly interested in commenting on James. What matters isn't what others think, but what you believe. Whether your father was good or bad is in the past. The dead cannot be brought back to life. Even so. Harry pouted. I just don't quite understand why Mum married him in the first place. Right, about Hagrid, have you found any leads yet, Lynn? It happened 50 years ago, and it's likely not a trivial matter. I guess quite a few people at school must know about it. Hagrid isn't willing to talk, so maybe we can inquire elsewhere. Like the ghosts. Harry voiced her idea. The ghosts at Hogwarts have been here for a long time, right? They must know something. Maybe I could ask Sir Nicholas. He likes talking to us. Nick is genuinely kind and very enthusiastic. You might as well try. Once we figure out exactly what happened, maybe we can find a way to help Hagrid. You're right. Now, let's go back. I don't want to climb the stairs. Harry smiled brightly and held out her hand. You'll send me back to the entrance, won't you? Get some rest then, Harry. Good night. As soon as he finished speaking, Harry vanished down the corridor. They slipped one after the other through the portrait hole behind the fat lady and separated in the common room. Lynn was also preparing to head back to rest, but at the entrance to the boys' dormitory, he saw Neville sitting in a nearby armchair. Lynn. Neville stood up when he saw Lynn arrive. I finally waited for you. What's wrong, Neville? Lynn pulled out a chair and sat opposite Neville, looking at him calmly. It's Professor Quirrell. Neville lowered his voice, his chubby round face looking slightly serious. What do you think of Professor Quirrell? He's fooling incompetence. Lynn shook his head slightly. You noticed it too, didn't you? Yes, I mean, Professor Quirrell used to teach Muggle studies. I went to inquire this afternoon. Although few people took that class before, some students had taken his course. They told me that before last year, Professor Quirrell was actually a very capable and intelligent person. Every holiday, he would travel the world to meet wizards and muggles from all corners of the globe. He wanted to figure out the essential difference between wizards and muggles, why magic chose wizards, and what the true nature of magic was. Professor Quirrell was very impressive. He used to share his insights from traveling to different countries in class. He was even very proficient in wandless magic. He told the older students that he practiced this, because you always encounter various unexpected accidents in unfamiliar environments. Just on the day the Quidditch match ended, I accidentally overheard him muttering things like, three-headed dog, and, find a way. He seemed extremely agitated and even afraid of something. Do you remember what Professor Dumbledore said on the first day of term? Unless you want to die a most painful death, do not go to the room at the end of the corridor on the 4th floor. Lynn nodded, repeating Dumbledore's words from that time. It's that room. There's a three-headed dog inside. Neville lowered his voice further, leaning in to speak. That's a Greek Cerberus. My family's vault at Gringotts is guarded by one. Cerberus is the best treasure-guarding dog in the world. Is he planning something? Why do you think that? Lynn suddenly looked at Neville with curiosity. Because. Neville frowned in distress. It's a feeling. I always feel something about Professor Quirrell that strikes me as familiar, and it's a very bad kind of feeling. Neville suddenly shivered. It's a feeling of pure evil. After that day, I had a dream that night. Neville's voice suddenly dropped. I once witnessed my parents being tortured by Bellatrix Lestrange, Rodolphus Lestrange, Rabaston Lestrange, and Barty Crouch Jr. My mother and father hid me, and they didn't find me, but I saw everything. That night, I dreamed of it again, clearer than any time before. I will never forget that terrifying scene, and I will never forget those 4 people. Neville lowered his gaze, but his tightly clenched fists betrayed the deep thoughts in his heart. Neville. Lynn looked at the chubby Neville in front of him and gently patted his shoulder. Do you believe in miracles? What? Neville rubbed his eye sockets slightly red, and looked at Lynn. A miracle with a probability of 1 in 1900, or even lower. I don't quite understand. Neville shook his head in confusion, but then nodded and said, but I believe miracles exist in this world. He suddenly grinned. Being able to say goodbye to my former self is already a miracle to me. I believe it. But what is this miracle? I'll tell you when it truly arrives. Destiny, once revealed too early, ceases to be surprising. Life shouldn't be so dull. So, what are your thoughts on Quirrell? Lynn, who brought the topic back, was genuinely curious. No matter what Quirrell wants to do, I believe it's definitely not the right thing. Neville pondered, choosing his words carefully. Maybe he's looking for some treasure Professor Dumbledore is protecting. But it's strange, if Professor Dumbledore really hid something in that room that he didn't want anyone to find, he shouldn't have mentioned it. Unless Professor Dumbledore did it on purpose. Neville nodded slightly, analyzing meticulously. Perhaps Professor Dumbledore knew from the start that Quirrell's drastic change in personality was suspicious. He might want to use this method to test him, or to catch him red-handed. But clearly, Professor Dumbledore is very confident about this, otherwise he wouldn't have subtly informed everyone using this method. He is certain that Quirrell cannot harm us at Hogwarts because he is here. So, Professor Dumbledore might be treating this as some kind of test. Professor Snape said that dark wizards don't write, dark wizard, on their faces, they pretend to be harmless. Yes. Quirrell is deliberately acting foolish. He is hiding himself right now, making himself seem harmless to everyone. That must be it. This unexpected answer brought a smile to Lin's lips. You will definitely become an excellent wizard in the future, just like your parents, someone admirable. Not really. Neville gave an embarrassed chuckle. Being praised made him very happy. So, should we do something about it? Since Professor Dumbledore has set up a test, we can't let all his arrangements go to waste, can we? Perhaps we can play a little game of cat and mouse. Quirrell will expose himself sooner or later. Let's just treat this as our final exam. After speaking, Lin got up from the chair. I'm glad you were willing to share your discovery with me. But now, we should head back to rest, it's almost midnight. Yeah, it's very late. Neville also stood up from the chair, but as he turned to walk toward the dormitory, he leaned close to Lin and whispered, actually, there's one more thing. Oh. What is it? Lin paused and looked at Neville. It's Ron. Neville sighed helplessly. The effect of the graduation certificate wore off, and Ron reverted back to his old ways. He started asking Seamus, Dean, and me to copy our homework again. Didn't I give him a chance? Everyone is treated fairly. Lin shrugged indifferently. That's his own choice, and it has nothing to do with us. Sometimes, you need to set aside the urge to help others and respect their destiny. These are all choices made by fate. That's true. Neville seemed relieved and followed Lin back to the dormitory. The lights inside the dorm were already out, and the sound of deep snoring had long since begun. Christmas was approaching day by day, and as the rare long holiday drew near, the young wizard's desire to go home became increasingly restless. I wish the holidays started right now. When Hagrid placed the decorated Christmas tree in the Great Hall, Harry looked at the tree, adorned with colored lights and small gifts, and spoke full of anticipation. This is the first time I've ever looked forward to Christmas so much. My aunt wrote to me saying that we're going away for Christmas this year. Uncle Vernon secured a big deal at his company, so we're all going skiing in the Alps for the holiday. That sounds great. I hope you have fun. Seeing that the Dursleys' change in attitude toward Harry wasn't temporary, Lin was quite happy for her. But before we go away for Christmas, I want to go see my mother. Professor Snape told me that the house from back then is still standing in Godric's Hollow. That's where Gryffindor was born, and where the first golden snitch was created. The professor is willing to take me there before Christmas. My mother loved lilies the most, and I want to give her a bouquet. Harry didn't particularly like James. This was partly due to the Dursleys' influence, partly due to Snape's attitude, and most importantly, Harry herself had discovered that her father, during his school days, didn't seem to have been a very good student. She had inquired with Professor Flitwick, Professor McGonagall, and Professor Sprout, but the conclusions she reached were largely the same as what she learned from Snape. Violating school rules and playing tricks on classmates, he was a problem student who gave the professors 10,000 times more headaches than the twins, Fred and George. His good behavior only started in his final school year. The professors all said that it was because of Lily that James turned over a new leaf and reformed himself. This cemented her mother's position in Harry's heart. The more she compared them, the more she felt the immense gap between them, a difference like heaven and earth. Give your mother a bouquet for me. Lin flipped his wrist, and with a grab in the air, he held a bouquet of blooming lilies. Wow! Harry gasped, as that transfiguration. Lin, that move would be incredibly effective for charming girls. I usually don't need to charm them. Lin tucked the bouquet into Harry's arms. When I meet someone I like, I usually just ask her out directly. It's very effective, try it if you don't believe me. Then why don't you ask Cho out? I haven't seen you two stargazing after dinner much lately. Because it's illegal to prey on minors, and I'm not that desperate. Rather than dating girls, I prefer to spend time reading right now. I plan to start experiments during the break, the materials are all ready. I'm going to visit Mr. Ollivander around Christmas. Also, it's snowing now. How can we see any stars? Then give Cho back to me later. She's so beautiful and gentle, and you don't appreciate her. In that case, please take good care of Cho for me. As they spoke, the two suddenly stopped. A figure they both recognized walked out of a classroom ahead. Neville. What were you doing in the empty classroom? You're covered in dust. Harry stepped forward with a smile, pulled out her wand, and chanted, clean up. The dust clinging to Neville was instantly swept away. Thanks, Harry. Neville nodded gratefully, then pointed excitedly at the classroom door and said, I think you two should come in and see. I found an incredible mirror. Have you guys ever heard of the Mirror of Arised? Neville spoke up excitedly. My grandma mentioned it when she used to tell me stories when I was little. She said it's an incredible mirror. When people stand in front of it, they can see the thing they most desire in their heart. Regardless of whether you have experienced that thing or seen it before, it can fulfill your wish. The moment those words left his mouth, Harry immediately perked up. Of course. That sounds absolutely amazing. What do you think you'll see in the mirror? Pulling the two of them quickly into the classroom, Harry skipped excitedly. Next to the haphazardly stacked desks and chairs in the empty room, a huge, magnificent mirror rested quietly against the wall. I found it by accident. When I was going to the library, I saw Quirrell muttering again. I originally wanted to eavesdrop, but he was very cautious, so I hid in here. Neville explained quietly, then added, before you look, I need to tell you one thing. Everything the Mirror of Arised shows you is fake. Grandma's story said that many wizards became obsessed with the illusions they saw in the mirror, eventually muddling fantasy and reality until they were completely lost. You must remember this point. I almost forgot it myself earlier. But clearly, Neville, you remember it very well now. Lynn nodded at Neville. Neville's good memory was certainly reassuring. I know Tilda. Harry didn't find Neville tedious. After giving her assurance, she walked toward the mirror, feeling both excited and nervous. It's Mum. Harry pointed at the mirror and turned her head, shouting to Lynn, it's the same Mum I saw before, but she doesn't look as young. It's like she's been inside the mirror, growing up with the me in the mirror. Harry moved closer, gazing silently at the figure in the mirror that only she could see. I'm doing great now, Mum. Lynn helped me. Although I was a little uncomfortable at first, I think this is actually nice, because everyone likes you, Mum, so they are very kind to me too. The professors and students at school are wonderful, and I even joined the Quidditch team. Did you like it too, Mum? Is that why you ended up with Dad? Harry spoke softly to the figure in the mirror. Lynn and Neville stepped back, giving her privacy and avoiding eavesdropping on her intimate whispers with her family. About half an hour passed. Harry returned, a sweet smile playing on her lips, looking completely satisfied. She missed her mother, but after Hagrid's photo and Snape's memories had helped fill the gaps in her unfamiliarity with her mother, she didn't become trapped in the mirror's illusion. I had such a lovely chat with Mum. She definitely thinks I'm very happy now. Thank you, Neville, thank you for bringing me here. You're welcome. Neville, feeling a little shy, gave a simple, honest smile. What do you think Lynn will see in the mirror? Harry asked with great interest, having run over and sat down next to Neville. I bet Lynn will definitely see a huge group of super romantic beauties. Am I really that much of a pervert? Lynn glanced at Harry. If my reputation gets ruined, you'll be the first person I come after, Harry. But I am curious what this mirror will show me. Lynn, who had strode quickly up to the Mirror of Arised, suddenly froze. He stared at the mirror in disbelief, rubbing his eyes hard. No way. How can this be the thing I desire most? Lynn's mouth twitched slightly. It would be better if you showed me hundreds of peerless, breathtaking beauties for a harem than this. I love peace, I enjoy helping others, and when I meet a stray cat on the street, I even squat down to feed it dried fish snacks. The cat will even gratefully perform a 1080-degree backflip for me. How could a good person like me possibly desire this? Suddenly, Lynn shut up. Just as he was muttering and trying to deny it, the reflection in the mirror performed a flourish that instantly captivated his gaze. I admit I was a little stubborn earlier. How can a wand be such an inconvenient thing? Lynn pursed his lips, reached up, slapped his own cheek lightly. Harry. Lynn turned his head and shouted to Harry, lend me some money, but I don't know when I can pay you back. Isn't your wallet already with you? It might not be enough. Oh, how much do you need? We can go to Diagon Alley to withdraw it when we're on break. I need some gold. Let's start with one chest. Later, when I become super awesome, I'll 0 yuan purchase it from the bank vault to pay you back. This. Harry was stunned, then quickly waved her hands. There's absolutely no need for that. Just consider it a gift. You don't need to pay it back, and definitely don't go to the bank, that's illegal. But, what do you need the gold for? I'm going to start a business. A fiery glint flashed in Lin's eyes. Doraemon Future Technology Company, Limited is established today. I finally understand now. I don't actually desire boobs, I've found the greatest dream hidden deep inside my heart. What is it, then? Harry was completely confused by this nonsensical declaration. Why are you being so mysterious? What can't you tell us? You'll know when I accomplish it. Lin, acting the part of a riddle master, simply waved his hand. This path may be full of unknown risks, and I don't plan on dragging either of you into it for now. In short, little rich girl, you just focus on dropping the gold. This research is quite expensive. Oh. Harry pursed her lips, looking slightly unhappy. Then you have to tell me first after you succeed. I will. Lin nodded, then walked toward the door. I'm going to find Fred and George now. I have something I need to discuss with them. See you later. The moment he stepped out the door, Lin's figure vanished instantly from the corridor. The twins, who were currently in the common room studying a piece of parchment, suddenly felt a tap on their shoulders from Lin. Come on, let's go chat outside. Do you have some brilliant idea you want to share with us? Fred instantly understood. Without a word, he put away the parchment and stood up. I bet it's one of those ideas that will make us a fortune, right? George chuckled and followed suit. The three of them quickly left the common room and headed to the 8th floor corridor. Lin, knowing the route well, led them to the room of requirement. This was Hogwarts' best secret base. There's a secret room here too. The twins were slightly surprised. We thought we knew Hogwarts well enough already. It's the room of requirement. The way to enter is to think about what you need and walk back and forth here 3 times. Alright, let's go inside. We have a big business venture we can discuss together. A profitable venture. The twins immediately became energized. Of course. I'm going to be quite short on money later, so I need to start planning. Constantly relying on the little rich girl for funding is unethical, though acceptable in an emergency. Since he wasn't currently planning on robbing a bank vault for cash, Fred and George were the clear choice. Lin considered himself to have no business acumen, but couldn't he just copy others? This is what you call standing on the shoulders of giants to see the world. Let me state this beforehand. I'm not good at business. After sitting down in front of the fireplace in the room of requirement, Lin spoke earnestly to the twins. However, I can offer some ideas that might be interesting and feasible. You can help me assess whether they have commercial value. Both of you have excellent minds and enjoy delving into these things. I trust your judgment. Finally, someone recognizes our talent. Fred flashed a brilliant smile and nodded without hesitation, and George gave a thumbs up. Actually, when Charlie invested in us, he was prepared for the money to be lost, but how could we let him get away with that? Tell us, Lin, let's hear your brilliant ideas. Under the twins' gaze, a somewhat old wizard chess set flew over from a side desk. You're going to improve wizard chess. Fred raised an eyebrow slightly. You could say that. Lin poked a chess piece with his wand. This is a variation of chess, and I'd like to call it. Don't mess with me if you're not playing. The king, whose head Lin had poked with his wand, spoke aggressively. You filthy. Ha ha ha. Seeing Lin, who was momentarily stunned by the chess piece's interruption, the twins burst out laughing. The owner of this chess set must have been a foul-mouthed king before. If you curse a lot while playing, the pieces will become like this after extended use. However, new pieces also talk a lot, especially when you're not very skilled. They'll even teach you how to play. But what if the chess pieces could really move on their own? Lin flicked the foul-mouthed king on the head, sending it flying instantly into the corner of the room. But not foul-mouthed, but fighting. I call it auto chess. Lin waved his wand, and the remaining chess pieces on the table began to transform. He was already very skilled at transfiguring small objects, and could even do some fancy tricks. The remaining pieces on the board were divided into 2 teams, each consisting of 2 swordsmen, 1 knight, and 1 archer. However, the formations of the 2 teams were different. When the battle began, the knight on the left, having a suitable charging angle, directly cut through to the backline, easily eliminating the archer. Thus, the previously balanced scales were broken, and they achieved victory. This is an auto chess mode suitable for multiple friends to play together, each arranging their troops. Each little figure has its own unique skills and different attack patterns, as well as an equipment system to strengthen the pieces. Lin directly copied the golden spatula, but it became a magical version of physical chess pieces. The rules were not complicated, and the twins understood them immediately. Economic management, pre-battle strategy, and tactical maneuvering, these are the core gameplay selling points of auto chess. It has a low barrier to entry, but there's a lot of room for improvement in operational skill. Compared to wizard chess, it's much more entertaining. What about the design of the chess pieces? The twins asked a crucial question after hearing Lin's explanation of the gameplay and rules. That's not difficult to solve. Lin pulled a box of chocolate frogs from his pocket, then took out the card inside. Not just these renowned wizards. Dumbledore's card was placed on the table. I also plan to include magical creatures and characters from myths and legends. However, auto chess is only one part. These pieces can also be used in another different game mode. I use Dumbledore to cast Path of Fire God, dealing 777 damage to you. Lin reached out and pushed Dumbledore's card forward, and the twins immediately let out exaggerated shouts of surprise. Hot, hot, hot. What powerful fire. The two jokers' mime was a bit over the top, but at this moment, they understood what Lin was trying to convey. Card battle. Smart. Lin found it very easy with the quick-witted twins. We can use a little magic to project virtual images when the cards are played, but I'm not very good at spells, so you'll need to put in more effort on that. Once you've designed the spells, I can find a way to transcribe them into runes and print them on the cards for mass production. Character cards, equipment cards, magic cards, trap cards, field cards, combinations of different functional cards can make the matches incredibly exciting. You're a genius. The twins, who had already visualized the two games in their minds, immediately realized how popular these two things Lin told them about would be once launched. There weren't many entertainment options in the wizarding world, at least in England. The old-fashioned wizard chess would have almost no defense against auto chess and card games. We can already see a future day when galleons fall like rain, showering us with riches. Your idea is very good. But it's also quite challenging. At least, we currently have no confidence in turning your ideas into reality. We can't even begin to imagine what magic would be needed. The twins also realized how insufficient their current knowledge was. Turning the images in their minds into reality would indeed be very difficult. Then why not ask a professor? I bet Professor Flitwick might be interested in these things. Compared to Professor McGonagall, Professor Flitwick is much more childlike. So we'll start with card duels. Compared to the physical pieces of auto chess, magical projection is much simpler. We can already do a little bit of that now. Fred drew his wand and waved it, and a stream of sparks shot from the tip, forming his blurry, recognizable silhouette. So, our current task is, gather information for the cards to be created, wizards, magical creatures, legendary characters. First, complete the character design, and then consult Professor Flitwick on how to achieve our requirements. Fred and George exchanged glances, then grinned. This is definitely going to be fun. I can be responsible for collecting information on magical creatures and characters from myths and legends. I've read a lot of material on that before. Lin didn't intend for the twins to do all the work, that would be too slow. Leave the famous wizards to us. Coincidentally, we're not going home this Christmas. Mum and Dad are going to Romania to see Charlie, so we'll have a good time researching in the library. So now. Lin stood up and extended his hand. Welcome to the Game Entertainment Department of Doraemon Future Technology Company, Limited. What's that now? Fred and George smiled, shaking Lin's hand with mock seriousness. Since we're going to make a lot of money, we can't always be a makeshift team, right? The major shareholder is Hallie. She provides the money, we provide the people. In short, the dividends won't be small. With Hallie on board, Professors Snape and Dumbledore can both vouch for us. Even if it really takes off later, no one foolish enough will come looking for trouble. Merlin preserve us. May Hallie forever be young and beautiful, wise and charming. The twins, realizing the implications, cheered with raised hands. Now they felt secure. With backing, their business could proceed smoothly. Christmas was 2 days away, and the Hogwarts Christmas holidays had begun. The thestral-drawn carriages carried the young wizards, who had finished breakfast, away from the school and back to Hogsmeade Station. The Scarlet steam engine was already in place, and after a whistle, the Hogwarts Express, as if its meridians had been unblocked, rumbled forward. This speed must be close to 300 kilometers per hour, right? Unlike the slow journey to Hogwarts, the Hogwarts Express on its return trip to platform 9 3/4 was truly express. Lynn was surprised by the train's speed, which rivaled that of a high-speed rail. I was scared last year too. I thought something had happened to the train. Cho leaned her chin on her hand, looking out the window. The wind stirred up by the high-speed train swept away the snow on both sides of the tracks, revealing a winter wonderland behind the white torrent. I told my parents you were coming over for dinner, and they're very happy to have you, Lynn, but don't do anything weird. Me. Lynn pointed to the tip of his nose. What would I do? Oh, I know, I won't become sworn brothers with your dad. Don't worry, I won't take advantage of that. What are you talking about? Cho was startled by this very strange idea. I consider you a friend, and you want to be brothers with my dad. Maybe Uncle and I will hit it off right away. Lynn chuckled. By the way, Cho, what does your dad do here? Excavation of ancient magical ruins, and identification and recording of ancient runes. But these ancient runes aren't the kind used in alchemy today, they're special magical characters that were called ancient magic 1,000 years ago. Records of ancient magic in Europe have almost completely disappeared. Dad came here to uncover the secrets of European ancient magic, and so did my mom. But after I was born, my mom spent more time at home. Archaeological digs at ancient magical ruins are tough and dangerous. My dad says ancient magic is completely different from the magic most wizards use. Although I'm not very clear on it, what's certain is that the power of ancient magic is astounding. It can violate many magical prohibitions, such as changing the weather in an area, turning deep winter into spring. That's something magic simply can't do. Sounds amazing. Lynn thought back, but couldn't recall anything useful. He had been a Hogwarts senior, but he hadn't played the game very seriously. The female characters were as ugly as troll hybrids, covered in blackheads, truly unwatchable. Can anyone still use it now? Lynn asked Cho, remembering the legendary senior Fred and George had talked about. Of course, 100 years ago, a confirmed user of ancient magic appeared at Hogwarts. The Forbidden Forest at Hogwarts wasn't as big as it is now. Records show that he restored the Forbidden Forest, which had been damaged by poachers at the time, greatly expanding its area and making it the safest sanctuary for many magical creatures. It's a pity he disappeared. His name. What was his name? I don't know. He used magic to erase his name, probably because he didn't want people to disturb his life. Traces of him exist in the world, but no one knows who he really was. That's the power of ancient magic. So that's how it is. Lynn could roughly understand. This might be why Voldemort dared to stir up trouble in England in a world where seniors existed. If it weren't for special information channels, the existence of a senior might have been regarded as some exaggerated legend. Whether it was the twins or Cho, they all had access to this truth. What are you two talking about? Harry, drowsy from sleep, rubbed her eyes and lifted her head from Cho's lap. She must have been up to something yesterday. She still had faint dark circles under her eyes at breakfast, probably from pulling an all-nighter. A legendary senior who once appeared at Hogwarts. Lynn briefly summarized. Oh. Harry, not very interested in this, dangled her little feet, a bitter expression on her face. Lynn, my legs gone numb from sleeping. Then walk a bit. Can't move. Harry shook her head. Let me borrow yours for a bit. With that, she forcefully swung her leg, kicking her foot onto Lynn's leg. Don't tell me you got this from some hentai manga again. Hee hee tilde. Harry stuck out her little tongue. No white stockings, but there are white knee-high cotton socks. She pulled up her robes, revealing her over-the-knee white cotton socks. Stinky. Lynn's face was full of disdain, as he pinched his nose and fanned the air. How is that possible? I only changed them yesterday afternoon. You know it was yesterday. Do you want to check your fleece-lined snow boots before you say that to me? When you just took them off to sleep, they were steaming. That's because it was cold when we first got on the train. Harry, absolutely refusing to admit her feet smelled, grumbled, "It's completely different from the manga. Is there a possibility that the one you saw was because I found his XP too perverted, so I flipped through 2 pages and tossed it aside? So this isn't fun at all." Harry, who had only intended to tease Lynn, was a little dejected. This was completely different from what she had initially imagined. Speaking of fun, Lynn paused slightly, then narrowed his eyes, a curve forming at the corner of his mouth that made Harry shiver. "What do you want?" Harry, sensing something bad was about to happen, tried to pull her leg back, but it was too late. Her ankle was grabbed, and her struggling toes twisted, but it was no use. Lynn, with his right hand clenched into a fist and his middle finger knuckle protruding, let out a he, villainous laugh. "Let's play a game." He blew a breath onto his right hand. I'm sorry, Lynn." Harry, panicking, hugged Cho tightly, her little face filled with terror. "Don't be scared, Harry, I'm just here to give you a check-up." Harry's body stiffened as something hard pressed against the sole of her foot. A forced smile appeared on her slightly pale face. "Lynn, let's talk this out, okay? Don't use your hands. Let me see if your kidney is okay. Ah. It hurts. This is your liver. Mommy, save me." The teary-eyed crying girl and the boy with a rampant, evil grin formed a rather memorable masterpiece. Beside them, the calm girl with a bewildered expression was the sole witness to this farce. All bark and no bite. Lynn, having dropped the foot and washed his hands, still looked somewhat unsatisfied as he leaned forward and whispered, "How about we try a new game when we get back after Christmas? It'll be absolutely super fun." "No." Harry wiped her tears, shaking her head forlornly. "The kind you can win. Fair and square. Give it a try, it's really interesting." "What are we comparing?" Harry asked, half believing. "Reaction time. Bring it on. You can't back out if you lose." As soon as she heard it was about reaction time, Harry immediately felt confident. "So, are you done crying now?" "Done crying." Harry grabbed her robe and wiped her face. She was fine without being comforted. "Done crying. Get ready to get off the train. Change out of your school uniform, we're almost at the station. Change your socks too, they reek. If I get athlete's foot on my hands, you're toast, Harry." Cho tilde look, "Lynn's bullying me." "Who's bullying who? Don't throw your stinky socks at me. These are Christmas presents, and presents are always put in socks," Harry said, full of conviction. A small jet of water sprayed from the tip of her wand, and after washing her feet, she waved it again, and the water on the floor instantly disappeared. She was now very skilled at using these small spells. "What kind of dark manga are you reading? Are you sure you saw it from my collection?" The energetic Argonian maid. "Impossible. Absolutely impossible. How could I collect such a perverted thing?" Just as Lynn was questioning his life, the Hogwarts Express gradually slowed down and pulled into platform 9 3/4. Outside the window were eager parents, bringing the scent of home with them. Snape stood alone on the platform, isolated, but he was used to being by himself. There was no space reserved next to him for anyone else. While waiting on the platform, some parents approached him for a brief chat. Although Snape was deeply resented by the students, their parents didn't mind. A potions master barely in his 30s was rare in the entire world. For such an expert, even if his classes were strict, learning anything from him was worth the price. Only after leaving school did people belatedly realize that the professors' classes they had desperately wanted to skip were opportunities they couldn't buy even with a handful of gold outside. Upon entering society, they finally understood that there was an insurmountable class barrier between themselves and the professors who had once taught them. "Severus, I almost didn't recognize you." A blond man, arm in arm with a woman, walked toward Snape. He carried an exquisite cane and was dressed in fine, luxurious attire, setting him completely apart from the other parents. "Lucius." Snape nodded slightly. "And Narcissa, how have you been?" "Very well, my friend." Lucius Malfoy approached enthusiastically. Even setting aside the fact that Snape was his former schoolmate and colleague, Snape's current status alone was enough for Lucius Malfoy to display such warmth. "How is Draco doing at school? He's performing well, isn't he?" A hint of pride appeared on Lucius's face when he mentioned his son. "Not well." Snape shook his head coldly. If you don't keep a closer eye on him, he'll be ruined before long. This unexpected answer caused Lucius's expression to freeze, and a sudden panic rose in his heart. What's wrong with Draco? Narcissa let go of Lucius's arm and asked anxiously, did something happen? Or is someone bullying him? I believe you both understand, as clearly as I do, the influence environment has on a person. Snape narrowed his eyes slightly, seemingly scrutinizing Lucius's pale face. Lucius swallowed hard and forced a strained smile. It can't be worse than our time, can it? Of course not. Hearing this, Lucius breathed a small sigh of relief, but immediately his anxiety returned. We didn't have so many fools around us back then, Lucius. You know best who your son has been closest to. Stupidity, it's a contagious disease, and there is no cure. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't bother with him, but whether he listens or not from now on is no concern of mine. Thank you for the warning, Severus. Lucius, having processed many things in that instant, nodded slightly, though his expression was grim. He already guessed who those people were. No one knew those rascals' habits better than himself. I will have a serious talk with Draco. Nothing else mattered as much to Lucius as his son. Since Snape had presented the situation so gravely, it was certainly time to take it seriously. After bidding farewell to Snape, the Malfoys couldn't help but feel troubled. The whistle sounded closer. As the Scarlet steam engine slowly pulled in, the platform instantly became lively. Professor Snape, I'm here. Hallie happily waved and greeted Snape from the crowd, but Snape was already walking toward her as she stepped off the train. Hello, Professor Snape. Lynn and Chu also greeted Snape, their eyes involuntarily studying him. Today, Snape was wearing a black trench coat with a stand-up collar, paired with a black wool sweater and a long gray scarf. His hair was meticulously styled. Compared to his appearance at school, Snape seemed like a different person. Furthermore, a slight upward curve touched the corners of his mouth, making him appear much warmer. Is that really the Professor Snape we know? Chu leaned in and whispered the question into Lynn's ear. It's domestic and tender Snape 2.0. Lynn replied softly. Snape's outfit today scored an 8.5 out of 10. If his facial features weren't naturally shadowed with gloom, the score could be even higher. Unbelievable. Chu murmured quietly. He's completely different from the person at school. I have to go, Lynn. Remember to come to my house before Christmas. Snapping back to reality, Chu waved goodbye to Lynn, hugged Hallie, and then disappeared into the crowd. The professor is taking me to Godric's Hollow today, but we'll go to Diagon Alley first. I told my aunt and uncle not to pick me up today. Let's go, Lynn. Hallie linked arms with Lynn. I heard apparition is really uncomfortable, is that true? It's probably like being squeezed out of a tight rubber tube. Of course, it's also fine if you imagine you're being pulled out of some creature's backside. Ew, that's disgusting. A look of distaste appeared on Hallie's face. We can also use flow powder, Snape interjected, looking calmly at Hallie and Lynn. Apparition is indeed rather uncomfortable. Then let's try the flow powder. You just have to say where you want to go, right? Hallie asked excitedly. I read about it in a book, and I'm not afraid of spinning. Over here. This is where the public flow network fireplace is. Snape nodded and led them to the side of platform 9 3/4, where many wizards were coming and going. A staff member nearby was selling flow powder. One sickle bought a small handful, enough for one person. As the shimmering powder was tossed into the fireplace, green flames instantly erupted. Remember to state the destination clearly. Lynn, you demonstrate. Snape motioned for Lynn to go first. He would leave after Hallie, just in case. All right, Professor. Lynn stepped into the green flames and clearly spoke, Diagon Alley. With a burst of fire, Lynn's figure vanished within the fireplace. Don't be nervous, Hallie. Snape fussed over her like an old father. I know, Professor. I'm going now. Scattering the flow powder into the fireplace, Hallie followed Lynn's demonstration and vanished into the flames the next second. Diagon Alley was particularly lively during the students' holiday break. Pedestrians streamed by, and Christmas decorations were visible everywhere. Squeezing through the crowds, they reached Gringotts. Accompanied by a goblin, Lynn and Hallie entered the Potter family vault once more. Is this enough? Seeing Lynn take only 2 gold ingots from the chest, Hallie looked at him confusedly. Why don't you take a bit more? There are so many. Dozens of chests. Do you want any silver? The boxes holding those are almost falling apart. I don't know whether to call you wasteful or overly generous. Lin tossed the gold bricks in his hand. Each weighed 400 troy ounces, or 12.44 kilograms. If not for his telekinesis supporting them, Lin couldn't have handled them so easily. These 2 bricks in my hand are already worth 100,000 pounds. Your aunt and uncle's house could be bought outright if we added just 1 more. Oh. Hallie, who wasn't sensitive about money, felt nothing special about this. She hadn't seen much money before and had no concept of its value. Visually, these dozens of chests containing over 3 tons of gold combined were less impactful than the mountain of galleons stacked twice as high as Hagrid nearby. You should just take a whole chest. It's too much hassle to come back if you run out. If you don't use it all, just keep it for me. Oh, and help me pack some galleons too, in case I need to spend money. I saw in the paper that the Nimbus 2001 is about to be released. Lin, order 3 for me. You can bring a broom to school in your 2nd year, and then we can play Quidditch together. Did you forget I can fly? Don't waste money on unnecessary things. Lin floated lightly into the air, pulled out his 4-dimensional pocket, and scooped up a small handful of coins from the top of the galleon pile. He couldn't count them precisely, but there were 3 or 4,000. It must be so convenient to fly by yourself. Hallie pouted, speaking with a hint of envy. Once I figure out how to fix this thing, I'll let you use it. Lin shook the broken superpower training box in his hand. Lin hadn't found a way to repair Doraemon's high-tech parenting tool yet. Pointing a wand at it and chanting, "Reparo," certainly didn't seem to work. Then you absolutely must find a way to fix it. Hallie said with anticipation. Just as the two were about to leave the vault, Hallie reached out and tugged on Lin's sleeve. There's something I want to ask you, Lin. What is it? It's just, when I go to see Mum and Dad this time. I have Mum's gift ready, but for Dad, do you think a golden snitch would be okay? Hallie pulled a not-so-new golden snitch from her pocket. Although its color was still bright, signs of wear were visible on its surface. It's the one I caught in my first match. I asked Madame Hooch if I could buy it as a keepsake, and she said yes. Dad really loved Quidditch back then. What do you think about giving it as a gift? That's a wonderful idea. Lin smiled and nodded, reaching out to pat Hallie's head. I thought you'd only prepared a gift for your mother. Of course not. Hallie shook her head. Even though Dad wasn't a good student at school, he bullied people, formed gangs, and caused trouble, Mum still chose him in the end. That means Dad did do bad things, but he changed. I can't deny the good things about him just because I know his mistakes. Mum was a smart, good student praised by all the teachers. She wouldn't have been foolishly tricked. If Dad had truly been an irredeemable jerk, Mum wouldn't have married him, right? That's right. Hearing Hallie's words, Lin confirmed, it's wonderful that you think that way. Hee hee, I'm not stupid either. Hallie put away the golden snitch and poked her head forward. But getting your head patted turns you into a dummy, you know. Huh. Hallie froze for a moment, then immediately chased after him with clenched fists. Lin, don't run. Let me pat you back. Laughing and joking, they left Gringotts. Lin and Hallie parted ways at the entrance. Snape took Hallie to Godric's Hollow to see the memorial statue of the Potters and their graves, while Lin walked deeper into Diagon Alley and pushed open the door to Ollivander's wand shop. Mr. Ollivander, I'm back. After the chime of the bell, Lin's voice echoed in the empty shop. You're back. Welcome, welcome. Ollivander's soft voice drifted from behind the counter. His large, pale eyes looked like 2 small moons in the dim shop. Ollivander was very happy to see Lin again after several months. I've finished all the books you gave me before. I've noted down all the questions I have about wand making, and I'm here to ask for your guidance. Hagrid gave me some materials for making wands, but I tried a few times at school and failed. Could you take a look for me? Of course, my boy. Ollivander looked at Lin with satisfaction. Although he had no worries about lacking an heir, his son and grandson were already qualified wand makers. He was genuinely pleased to see someone passionate about the craft. After taking the prototype wand Lin handed him, Ollivander didn't need to examine it closely to identify the cause of failure. The problem lies in the fusion of the magical substances. Every magical wood possesses different properties, and even wood from different parts of the same tree has subtle variations. Harmonizing the magic is a task that requires extreme care. Its difficulty is certainly no less than brewing potions. The hair of an adult male unicorn is relatively more suited to heartwood, as male unicorns possess stronger, more aggressive magic that requires greater tolerance. Heartwood, compared to other parts of the material, can better withstand this power. However, things are never absolute. If you can fully master the technique of magical harmonization, these issues can be overlooked. For beginners, newcomers just starting wand making, the method I recommend for practice is this. Wind the unicorn hair core around the wood, and first attempt to fuse the magical substances of the two. Only after mastering this should you try the more advanced procedures. Hagrid gave you quite a bit of unicorn hair, didn't he? Ollivander chuckled happily. I know he has several sacks lying around his place, but most of it isn't suitable for making standard-sized wands. Only the long tail hairs are quite usable. Still, it's better than using it to twist ropes or knit sweaters. Only a fellow like Hagrid could be so wasteful. Nearly 1/3 of all unicorns in Europe live in the Hogwarts Forbidden Forest. It's difficult to spot even one or two in the wild. Only in the Forbidden Forest can you see them in herds. Hagrid has a very high talent for raising magical creatures. As an old friend who had known Hagrid for decades, Ollivander understood him well. He had personally crafted Hagrid's original wand. Actually, there's one more thing I'm curious about. Tell me, child, why must wands be a combination of wood and a magical creature material core? Are you asking about other materials for the wand casing? More precisely, why can't other materials be added? A distinct glint appeared in Lynn's eyes. In the mirror of her eyes, I saw a completely different possibility. And I intend to make it happen. The mirror of her eyes. Ollivander pondered for a moment after hearing the name. That is indeed an alchemical artifact with very magical powers, but I need to remind you of one thing. The mirror of her eyes shows you your heart's deepest desires, but the answers it provides are based on what you wish for. Although, in most cases, the contents of the mirror are quite real. For example, you can see relatives you've never met, scenes of places you've never been, and even, you can see the past and even the future. But not everything is real. It's not an omnipotent prophetic mirror, it's merely an artifact that fulfills your inner desires. It possesses powerful and wondrous magic, but it is not all-powerful. The magic mirror can tell you many secrets, but it also conceals lies that are not easily seen through by the person looking into it. This is the truth that makes the mirror of her eyes so captivating, so enchanting, and so misleading. What you see with your own eyes is not necessarily real. Ollivander's warning was sincere and earnest, and Lynn naturally didn't take it lightly. Thank you for the reminder, but since the mirror of her eyes has presented a possibility, there shouldn't be any harm in trying it out. Even if it ultimately fails, perhaps we can gain some new insights from the experiment. Isn't the endless unknown mystery precisely what makes magic so appealing? Yes, indeed. Ollivander chuckled. Even wands, the wands used by wizards around the world are different, and their design principles are entirely distinct. Besides the combination of magical wood and magical creature materials, magical gemstones are also materials many wizards choose when making wands. In fact, several centuries ago, wands inlaid with gemstones were popular in Europe. Almost every wizard from a noble family took pride in owning such a luxurious wand, but wielding such a lavish wand was no easy feat. Ollivander tapped the table, indicating to Lynn that he was getting to the point. Magical gemstones are crystals with special powers. The magic flowing through them is imbued with a unique attribute inherent to the gemstone itself. In the magical world, this attribute is called elemental magic. When using the corresponding elemental magic to cast specific spells, the spell will be strengthened. But similarly, when using this magic to cast certain spells with opposing attributes, the spell may fail or even backfire. And in Europe, although some of the spells we use can be enhanced by such elemental magic, their universality is too poor. After being popular for a while, these luxurious wands were gradually phased out. Even if someone inlaid gemstones on their wands, they only used ordinary gemstones, not magical ones. Different spellcasting systems have led to different magical schools among wizards worldwide, and wands, as spellcasting mediums, naturally come in a variety of styles and attributes. Your idea is excellent, and I don't object to you conducting such interesting research. So tell me now, what is the first target you want to research? Ollivander looked at Lin with interest. A new mind was more creative than his own, which had been used for so long. As an experienced person, he didn't oppose such novel explorations. After all, when he was young, he had also come up with many strange ideas. I want to create a wand that can help me use spells. My talent in spellcasting is very poor. Even though my magic power is sufficient and my control is adequate, I always have great difficulty when casting spells. Professor Flitwick recommended that I learn runic magic, but as a product eliminated by incantation magic, its flaws are obvious. I want to change it, or rather, optimize it, to make it more suitable for me to use. Lin took out the magic book and opened a blank page. I want to find a more advanced and suitable spellcasting method for this era to compensate for my shortcomings. To escape my current stiff and inefficient spellcasting state, I want runic magic to also possess the same high degree of freedom as incantation magic, able to change according to my will. I need a special wand exclusively for me. Since my spellcasting talent is difficult to change, then I'll change it. Lin drew out his ashwood wand, then gently tapped the table. A rectangular wooden block placed on the table instantly changed its shape. Even in the dimly lit shop, the silvery metallic color reflected a sharp white light. The intricate carvings on it were exquisitely beautiful. Lin had replicated exactly what he had seen in the Mirror of Arised. An exquisite work of art. Ollivander nodded slightly, then reached out and picked up the silver-engraved Colt M1873 revolver. It's a pity the patterns on it are meaningless. He glanced at it a few times and then gently shook his head. If this is what you saw in the Mirror of Arised, I can only say, as a collector's item, it's acceptable, but as an alchemical artifact, it's not even as good as an ornament. This is the lie the Mirror of Arised showed you. I know. Lin nodded. But it represents a new possibility, doesn't it? Has anyone in the wizarding world ever tried using Muggle weapons? Of course. Ollivander nodded. Muggle firearms and cannons, wizards have actually used them. When I was in school, dueling with pistols was very popular. After all, with just one shield charm, these things couldn't harm wizards at all. The iron shield charm also has good resistance to such toys, and as for magical creatures. I remember about 10 years ago, there was an incident where a wizard illegally kept a Welsh green dragon. Due to his negligence, the dragon appeared in a Muggle city and went berserk. The Muggle armies attacked it with weapons, but only managed to knock off a few scales. The dragon's innate magic ignored all Muggle attacks, and most magical creatures possess this ability. Only magic can fight magic. When wizards were expelled and persecuted by Muggles, it was because Muggle churches brainwashed and controlled exposed wizarding prodigies, training them into extremely dangerous demon hunters. These demon hunters could at any time enter an irreversible berserk state, becoming obscurials. Ordinary wizards found it difficult to resist their attacks, and these demon hunters had a very keen perception of magic. This is just like the witch burnings in the Middle Ages. Without the interference of magical power, as long as wizards didn't want to, Muggles had no real chance of threatening a wizard's life. Apparition doesn't require a wand. In Ollivander's perception, Muggle weapons could threaten lives, but as long as a wizard was slightly prepared, these weapons were not essentially different from toys. A Muggle repelling charm could instantly disperse a Muggle army. But what if it were like this? Lin didn't doubt what Ollivander had said before, but he wouldn't give up so easily. With a flick of his wand, the small wooden block on the table transformed into a gleaming golden bullet. If I were to engrave runes onto it, and manufacture bullets using the methods for creating alchemical items, could I then rapidly cast spells without needing to write runes? My biggest weakness is my insensitivity to spells, which limits my ability to use incantations flexibly like other wizards. If you put it that way, then yes, it could work. Because most wizards don't have Lin's particular flaw, they wouldn't consider such things. Ollivander nodded knowingly. Doing so would indeed grant you the ability to cast spells quickly. But it's very rigid, isn't it? Ollivander pointed out the biggest flaw in this approach. If you cast spells by writing runes, at least while you're writing, you can customize the spell's effects according to your needs, such as how high something floats or where it goes. However, if you use engraved runes, then the magic is fixed once it's set and cannot be changed. The side effect of rapid casting is increased rigidity, you almost lose control over the spell. What about incorporating transfiguration then? Lin proposed a new solution. Using transfiguration to quickly modify the runes before activating the magic, ensuring that each spell cast meets my desired requirements. That involves a lot more considerations. While the plan sounds feasible, there are many difficulties. Ollivander shook his head slightly. This kind of spellcasting is not simple, in fact, it's incredibly troublesome. And you'd also need to solve a problem, the magical conflict caused by transfiguring materials. Transfiguration is also a type of spell, and its effects would impact your subsequent incantations, as your spell is activated through a medium that has been transfigured. This issue is quite critical. The experienced wandmaker shrewdly pointed out the flaws in this method, he had considered it far more deeply than Lin. Perhaps I'll find a solution in the future. Lin frowned in thought, but he couldn't come up with an effective solution for the time being. Who knows, maybe one day you'll suddenly get an inspiration and solve this problem. Ollivander didn't dampen Lin's enthusiasm. But for now, I think you need to strengthen your knowledge base again. Come, I'll get you some new books that will help you. He gestured for Lin to follow him into his workshop, which was also a massive library. It wasn't until evening that Lin emerged from Ollivander's. His four-dimensional pocket now held about 20 thick books, which would be his sustenance for the next month or so. Recreating the gun from the Mirror of Arise proved to be more difficult than Lin had imagined. The more he discussed it with Ollivander, the more he understood why this seemingly interesting research direction had remained unexplored until now. Using alchemy to cast spells was simply too clumsy for a normal wizard. It was like a person with perfectly good hands insisting on eating with a spoon held between their toes. Only someone with Lin's unique needs would be forced to choose this path. The future is bright, and the prospects are vast. Lin, having given himself a pep talk, cheered up. Since things are as they are, I'll take a bath and have dinner first. Passing through the leaky cauldron and leaving Diagon Alley, Lin familiarized himself with the nearby small park. His versatile tent was set up, and the tempting aroma once again wafted from the gourmet tablecloth that hadn't been used in a long time. Why is there still curry pilaf? Is the true British tradition really in India? In the days leading up to Christmas, Lin secluded himself in his tent, diligently studying the books Ollivander had given him. When he got tired of reading, he would organize materials for card games and auto chess to relax his mind. Such a monotonous life would be a nightmare for other children, but Lin didn't find it boring at all. He was very patient. He also jotted down some new ideas for his personal wand, such as using magical gems to make bullets. However, these conjectures couldn't be confirmed without actual experimentation. 2 or 3 days flew by. Realizing it was Christmas Eve that night, Lin put down his book, packed up his tent, and hailed a deep burgundy taxi to South Kensington, where Cho Chang's family lived. This was an old affluent area of London, where a 10-minute walk could cover the core campuses of 4 G5 universities. You had a 32% chance of encountering the Chancellor of Imperial College during a morning run here. Wizards who lived in such a place not only needed sufficient financial resources but also considerable ability. Living securely and undetected so close to Muggles meant that the house's protective magic was a true test of one's personal skill. Following the note Cho had given him earlier, Lin got out of the car and walked for 2 minutes before arriving at a detached villa shrouded in magic, which Muggles would subconsciously ignore. Before Lin could even reach out to knock, a beautiful tabby cat darted in front of him, waved at him in a very human-like manner, and let out a few meows. Hello there. Lin crouched down and reached out to stroke the large tabby that had greeted him. Meow tilde. The large tabby, slightly bigger than a normal tabby cat, rubbed its small head against Lin's palm. Just as it was nuzzling Lin, the front door suddenly opened. Lin, you're here. Cho called out to Lin, a happy smile on her face. But then, she turned to the large tabby and said, Mudu, do a backflip. Meow tilde. The large tabby obediently leapt into the air, performed a backflip, and landed steadily. See, isn't my cat amazing at backflips? Is that a Kneazle? Lin scratched the little creature's chin, he had noticed the cat's distinctiveness. I suppose so. Cho also crouched down and joined Lin in petting the cat by the door. Mudu came with my parents. It's been with my family for almost 30 years, so it's actually my elder. Mom says I was a bit mischievous when I was little, and Mudu always played with me. Come on, let's go inside. Dad and Mom are home. Mom is making lots of delicious food today. It'll definitely be completely different from any Christmas you've had before. We don't eat turkey, you know, it's too awful. But there's Mom's special Christmas pudding cake, it's super great. Yes, thank you very much. Aren't you just shamelessly coming to freeload a meal? Cho picked up Mudu and hummed as she walked ahead. Lin also took out the small gift he had prepared from his pocket. He couldn't show up empty-handed to a dinner invitation. However, he hadn't brought anything particularly expensive. A box of tea, a bottle of red wine, and some fruit, as it was customary to eat, peace apples, on Christmas Eve. As he entered, Cho's father happened to walk into the living room. His steps paused slightly as his eyes met Lin's. Professor Zhang. Lin looked at the gentle, refined middle-aged man before him with a hint of hesitation. It's you. I knew that name sounded familiar. Dad. You know him. Cho looked at her father with some surprise. Back at Oxford University, this lad was a legend. He finished 6 years of coursework in 3 months. Professors from the history and archaeology departments even fought over him, wanting him as a student. Later, he was escorted out by security and disappeared without a trace, causing such a commotion it nearly blew up the school. I saw him a few times there. I even taught him Old Norse, and he learned it all in a week. If I hadn't had to rush off to an archaeological dig afterward, I would have wanted to take him on as a student. However, Cho. Professor Zhang looked at his daughter with a smile. This classmate of yours is quite extraordinary, you know. He must be very popular with girls at school, right? I remember when he was just 8 or 9, he'd already charmed hundreds of beautiful older sisters. Professor Zhang looked at Lin with a hint of teasing in his eyes. If Lin hadn't truly been so young back then, he probably would have already been on the Oxford University boys, this scoundrel must be punished, list. Ahem, Lin coughed awkwardly, then quickly stepped forward to hand over his gifts. I'm imposing on you this time, Professor. Just a small token of my appreciation, please be merciful with your words. Ha ha ha. You rascal. Professor Zhang unceremoniously accepted the gifts, then patted Lin on the shoulder. Don't be a stranger, treat this like your own home. Come and sit down, I'm just about to test you. It was Lin's first time celebrating a Hong Kong-style Christmas. There was no universally despised turkey, no outwardly golden Christmas pudding, and certainly no inexplicable bean sprouts with chestnuts. Instead, there was blanched shrimp, claypot rice with preserved meat, steamed spotted grouper, pineapple buns, iced milk tea, and the Hong Kong-style braised pork that Lin had been craving for a long time. Lin, who had gone up to the attic with Professor Zhang after dinner to drink tea and chat, felt happy and comfortable, but Cho, who was holding Mudu nearby, seemed a little unhappy. What's wrong? A hand gently stroked Cho's hair, then rested on her shoulder. Nothing, Mom. Cho shook her head and glanced at the beautiful woman standing beside her. Are you mad at Dad? Because he's keeping a close eye on the boy you like, and you're unhappy about it. Mom tilde, Cho replied shyly, acting a little spoiled, it's not really that. Although Lin is my good friend, if we're talking about, like. Cho pondered for a moment. I liked him before because he's handsome, and he gives me a very warm feeling. But I don't think it's the kind of, like, you're thinking of, Mom. Oh, what kind of, like, is it then? Cho, pulled by her mother to sit on a wicker chair on the small balcony, curled up in a soft cushion. The snow outside was falling heavily, but the cold wind and flakes couldn't touch her, as the warmth from the fireplace radiated into the small living room balcony as well. I can't quite say. Lin told me before that I don't understand what true liking is yet, nor the feeling of falling in love with someone. I didn't quite get it, but after I recalled what you told me about how you and Dad got together, I think I understand a little bit now. If I only liked him because he looks good, then that liking wouldn't last long. You and Dad had things you both liked, and careers you both loved. Those things are what ultimately brought you together, right? But Lin, I don't really understand him. He's someone who actively pursues something as soon as his interest is piqued. He's very interesting, but I can't keep up with his pace. Being friends with him is very pleasant because he always considers my feelings, but this feeling is actually a bit strange, it's like. Before Cho could finish, a cute, kai-ji, sound came from her arms. A shimmering little ball of fluff popped out from her collar. Compared to 3 months ago, this cute golden snidget's feathers had fully grown in, and its ruby-like eyes were full of delight upon seeing Cho. Orange Tilda, you're finally awake. The golden snidget, held in Cho's palm, was only half the size of her fist. If it closed its eyes and tucked in its head, it looked like a shimmering little orange. I feel like Lin's relationship with me is similar to my relationship with Orange. We are very close, yet we can never fully understand each other's thoughts. I take very good care of it. Cho stroked Orange's soft, fluffy body, but it can't take care of me the way I take care of it. The maiden quietly spoke her worries, feeling both a little happy and a little anxious. Actually, you don't need to overthink things, Cho. Professor Zhang's voice came from behind Cho. He was sipping a cup of hot tea and gently walked over to his daughter. Dad, how could you eavesdrop on Mom and me talking, Tilda? I wasn't eavesdropping. I was just passing by, preparing to grab some snacks to take upstairs. Actually, when I pursued your mother, I didn't overthink it. It was just because she was the prettiest girl I knew. As long as I saw her, I felt happy and joyful, so I acted. In many cases, we don't need to worry about unnecessary things. If something makes us happy and brings us joy, then we should just boldly do it. But that boy, Lin, based on my understanding of him, he will likely always be on the path of seeking novelty and excitement, because he possesses the talent and capital for it, and he is not easily satisfied. When the novelty of something fades, he will actively seek out something more interesting. Actually, I've considered that when he left Oxford University, it wasn't because the new security guard chased him away, but because he had already grown tired of the place. He had acquired the knowledge he wanted, and even if no one had driven him out, he would have left on his own. I don't object to you being friends with Lin, he's a very good kid. It's just that, for girls, he's only suitable for dating, not marriage. He's a natural playboy, and his liking and love won't stay focused on one thing forever. If a person is born with too much compared to others, then he certainly won't understand what it means to cherish something, because those things are easily obtainable for him. Don't get too deeply involved with him. Dad doesn't want to see you sad and crying. Compared to those unknown, yellow hairs, running around the wild, Lin, this, yellow hair plus, was at least slightly more pleasing to the eye. Father Zhang knew very well that his adolescent daughter would be somewhat rebellious. Rather than blocking her path entirely and watching her climb mountains and take treacherous detours, ending up covered in bruises, it was better to explain things clearly and allow her to prepare herself mentally. Wizards have longer lifespans than ordinary people, the happiness and beauty of youth will be remembered longer, and so will regret and sadness. Mr. Zhang, who had returned to the attic study with the snacks, sat across from Lin. The handsome young man opposite him was focused on a dry reading material that gave many people headaches and eye strain. The obscure and difficult ancient runes were like treasures filled with gold in his eyes, slowly satisfying his curiosity for the unknown. What a pity. Mr. Zhang stared at Lin for a long moment, shook his head slightly, and sighed. Professor, what's wrong? Lin closed the book and looked up at Professor Zhang. Such a handsome young man, but unfortunately, he's a playboy. Ha ha. Lin didn't mind this assessment, as Professor Zhang was a teacher who knew quite a bit about his background. I will always love beautiful girls with big chests, slender waists, and long legs, so please rest assured, Cho and I will definitely only be good friends. Forget it. I don't like interfering with you young people's affairs. Just be mindful of boundaries. Mr. Zhang waved his hand. You can take this book back and read it slowly. Now, take a look at this, the genuine ancient runes. Maybe you can bring me a surprise. Teacher, you flatter me. I just have a good memory. I'm still far behind in magic. Although he said this, Lin still actively took the handed book and quickly flipped it open, but after only a few pages, he frowned and rubbed his temples. Can this monstrosity really be considered a form of writing? Feeling dizzy, it was the first time Lin had encountered such gibberish that he couldn't imprint in his mind. Looking at it for too long even gave him a headache, as if he had drunk half a caddy of baijiu. You feel its mysterious magic, right? Actually, these rubbings of text haven't been infused with any magic. How is that possible? That is the most miraculous aspect of ancient runes. When you are able to decipher them, perhaps you will be able to see the truest, hidden side of the world. It seemed like only a blink of an eye, and the Christmas holiday had rushed by. Amidst the swirling snow, the Hogwarts Express puffed white smoke, carrying the young witches and wizards back to the campus. All the way, Harley shared her joyful Christmas vacation with Lin and Cho Chang. This was Harley's first time traveling, and she was still savoring the memories even after the holiday ended. And also, after getting into Thestral carriage, a chattering Harley pulled down the hood of her cloak. I really love the Christmas gift, Lin. She turned her head to reveal a white jade-like hairpin, with a lifelike owl carved on its head. Harley recognized Hedwig the moment she received it. Cho Chang has one too, right? Tilda. Lin nodded. Earlier, Hagrid had given them some unicorn horns to play with, and Lin had used his spare time to carve one of the unicorn horns into 2 hairpins, giving them as Christmas gifts to the 2 girls. Unicorn horns are quite sturdy and hard. After all, they are weapons capable of piercing dragon scales. However, with the help of his telekinesis, Lin was able to carve them. It's strange to say, his telekinesis has strong and sustained output, but its explosive power is quite poor. If it were Hagrid, he could also easily move 10 tons of heavy objects, but Hagrid's explosive power is several times his own strength. Getting punched by him is like being hit head-on by a 100-ton king, but Lin's telekinesis cannot achieve such instant bursts. Lin's telekinesis is like a hydraulic press without an accumulator for energy storage, only capable of stable, continuous output. This is also why Lin doesn't dare to engage in direct confrontations with powerful wizards. Before he can twist them into a pretzel with his telekinesis, they would surely find a way to escape. While he can teleport away without much trouble, he fears these guys might have some means to track his whereabouts. After all, magic is not bound by science. Anyway, as long as you two like it. Since you put so much effort into my gift, here, take a look at this. Harley pulled out a palm-sized photo album from her embrace. It contained photos taken during their trip, which she had already shown to Lin and Cho Chang. But at this moment, Harley turned to the last page of the album. Most of the album was blank, and Lin hadn't expected there to be photos pasted at the very end. While I was skiing, I met a super beautiful older sister. Harley pointed at the photo and said, she's the type you like most. Big chest, slender waist, long legs. Lin's gaze hadn't fallen on the photo yet. He was looking at Harley with a serious expression. You truly are the best brother I've ever had, Harley. Lin reached out and pressed Harley's shoulder. In that instant, he was suddenly a little moved. Other people's brothers worry if you're not doing well, but they worry even more if you find a young model, drive a Range Rover, and become a diamond bachelor. But Harley was different. She genuinely hoped he would live a good life. Not only did she give him money, but she also didn't forget to bring along a young model. Lin felt that if he didn't call her godfather, he would be somewhat ungrateful. Let me see what a young model looks like, tilde. Lin, his expression suddenly a bit lewd, took the photo album. His pupils slightly contracted the moment he saw the photo. Lin paused slightly, then looked up at Harley with a skeptical expression. Are you sure, the one taking a picture with you is a person? Not some goblin. Lin, how did you figure that out? Hearing this, Harley asked curiously, I only found out later, this older sister is a half-blood. Bela. Harley nodded vigorously. Then is her name, Fleur Delacour. Wow. Lin, how did you know? Harley's eyes widened, her face full of surprise. Because I can tell fortunes. When he saw the silver-haired girl posing with Harley in the photo, Lin had a slight guess. Even though it was a still photograph taken with a Muggle camera, the girl in the picture was so radiant that one couldn't tear their eyes away. Her hair and skin seemed to be enveloped in a pearlescent glow, beautiful to an inhuman degree. Sure enough, the casting for the movie in my previous life was a mess. Lin muttered to himself. Was it really that hard to find an actress with the same level of beauty as Sophie Marceau for a movie? If not, he could ask for a few ex-girlfriends' phone numbers, he could probably gather half a dozen. What does tell fortunes mean? Harley was a bit confused, reaching out and pinching Lin's arm. Does it mean you hurt people when you pinch, or that you're good at math? Introduce her to me, and I'll tell you. Feeling his arm bruised by Harley, Lin grimaced and swatted her paw away. Then beg me. Harley crossed her arms, proudly raising her chin. I've never begged anyone in my life, Harley, don't dream too big. Lin, with his unyielding pride, would never easily bow his head. After all, he was very busy now and had no time for romance. He was too lazy to even nibble at the fresh flowers and tender grass at his doorstep, let alone online dating. If he really did that, Sigurd would fall out with him. Beauxbatons was next to Hogwarts, and a round trip was thousands of kilometers. No matter how well Sigurd could fly, he couldn't endure such a hassle. Anyway, I didn't ask for her contact address. Harley playfully stuck out her tongue. You can't get it even if you want to. Oh, you dare to tease me. Harley, you're finished. Harley, pinned to Lin's thigh, suddenly regretted it. She should have realized the seriousness of the matter earlier. However, it was too late. Don't tickle me. I was wrong, Lin. No. Ha ha ha. No. Ha 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 ha. Stop. When that wicked hand reached her waist and touched her delicate skin, Harley transformed into a maggot, struggling desperately. Don't stop. Then I'll increase the intensity. In just 3 to 5 minutes, she was completely drained of energy, lying in Cho Chang's arms as if broken, her face flushed. You should bathe frequently even in winter. I have dirt under my fingernails. Lin took out his wand, tapped his fingertips, and chanted, cleanse all. But, I just had a hot spring bath the day before yesterday. Harley pouted, her expression somewhat resentful. The all-purpose tent isn't here, bathing is such a hassle, and it's cold in winter. I can't even use magic to blow dry my hair outside. Do you miss me now that you're out? Just let me have the tent, okay? I'll buy you a newer, bigger one, alright? No, I've had it for so many years, I'm emotionally attached. I can't give this one away. I bought new underwear. What does that have to do with me? They're white stockings, and black and white stockings. Lin's expression became a bit more serious. He carefully sized Harley up and down, then shook his head. I'm not interested in short legs. That's because I haven't grown tall yet. Harley pouted angrily. You'll see in 2 years. Then I'll look in 2 years when you're good looking. The carriage had stopped steadily, and the young witches and wizards were getting off. Lin opened the back door and jumped into the snow. Let's go, the hot soup in the Great Hall will be cold if we're any later. Wait. Help me up, my legs are weak, Lin. Returning to the familiar school, looking at the unfamiliar textbooks, the young witches and wizards, whose minds felt blank and couldn't remember anything, racked their brains to cope with their homework. The holiday hangover didn't disappear until half a month after school started, and Madame Pants in the library was swamped during this period. Lin worked with the twins to refine their small business design while also reading books and trying out his own research. Whether it was making a gun or a wand, he had to be proficient in the fusion of magical materials, which required accumulated time to master. Harley was also busy during this time, running up and down the castle. She even ventured into the Slytherin common room alone and emerged unscathed. When the Slytherin students saw Harley, wearing a Gryffindor uniform, enter, they were startled. They thought Gryffindor had come knocking. The last time Gryffindor students visited the Slytherin common room was over a century ago, during the time Phineas Nigellus Black was principal of Hogwarts, when the 4 houses of Hogwarts were unprecedentedly united. He was the first principal in Hogwarts history to be so terrible at his job. While being extremely biased towards Slytherin, he unprecedentedly stuffed filth into the Slytherin house. As long as someone came from a pure-blood family, even if they were the product of inbreeding and had the intellect of a troll, he would open the doors of Hogwarts to them. If it weren't for the alchemical treasures left by the 4 founders of Hogwarts, the Quill of Acceptance and the Book of Admittance, who knows how many young witches and wizards would have been misguided under Phineas's policies, allowing dark tragedies like the Obscurus to reoccur. After all, it was during Queen Victoria's reign. With internal and external collusion, Hogwarts experienced its darkest period, and its reputation plummeted like a burst dam, collapsing completely. One can only say Great Britain truly is a land of outstanding people. They possess world-leading talent and ability when it comes to doing bad things. Fortunately, Harley managed to escape from the Slytherin common room without incident, otherwise, a lion-snake battle might have broken out again. Harley, beautiful, kind-hearted, and sweet-voiced, is exceptionally popular in Gryffindor. The snow outside the castle showed signs of melting, and the weather was gradually warming, but the days when snow melts are the coldest. Just as Lynn put on his fur cloak and walked towards the room of requirement, Harley, who seemed to pop out of nowhere, gracefully blocked his path. I finally caught you. Harley put her hands on her hips and started to aggressively question him. Lynn, did you forget something very important? Something important. Lynn pondered for a moment, then slapped his forehead. It's about Hagrid, isn't it? The most appropriate thing Lynn could think of that Harley would keep on her mind was Hagrid's secret past. We agreed before that we would find out how Hagrid was framed, but you haven't done anything, just talked a good game. Harley, who truly cared about this matter, was very dissatisfied with Lynn's previous inaction. She and Cho had almost asked everyone, ghosts, and portraits in Hogwarts who might know about the incident during this time. Just understanding what happened wasn't enough. She wanted to clear Hagrid's name from the injustice of that year and restore his innocence. So what did you find out? Lynn asked Harley softly. Wasn't it rumored that the Chamber of Secrets was opened, and a Muggle-born female student died in the third-floor lavatory? Hagrid was accused of being the murderer because he kept an acromantula as a pet. But because the Ministry of Magic couldn't find direct evidence, he was released on Dumbledore's guarantee, but his wand was still broken. And the girl who was killed, was it Myrtle? How did you know? Harley almost dropped her jaw. She and Cho had gathered clues and pieced together the truth after much inquiry around the school. I never saw you asking about this at school. Then you definitely didn't ask the house elves in the kitchen. Lynn shrugged. Although he knew the general content without asking, he still needed an excuse. So, he casually asked when he went to the kitchen for a late-night snack, and unexpectedly, the house elves knew a lot about it. How could you? Harley bit her lip and said aggrievedly, why didn't you tell me when you already knew? Do you know how much effort Cho and I put into finding clues? You have to have some sense of participation, don't you? Lynn smiled and patted Harley's head. But the main reason is that even if we knew what happened back then, we wouldn't be able to get evidence to overturn the original verdict. Without strong evidence, we can't reopen the case. Then what should we do? Harley was also troubled by this question. After learning what happened, she was very anxious to find a solution. Maybe if we get a time machine someday, we can just travel back 50 years and catch the real culprit. But how is that possible? Going back in time, even magic can't do that, right? Harley didn't know much about the wizarding world, but she had never heard of time magic. There are time turners, so a time machine, who knows, it might just pop up one day. Although the probability was slim, Lynn still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. But such things couldn't be forced, he'd let fate decide. If there's no time machine, then all we can do is wait. Maybe one day, we really will find evidence and witnesses. I have a hunch. You talk as if you can foresee the future. Harley tilted her head, her face puffed up in an annoyed pout. Maybe I really have the potential to be a fortune teller. Just as he was about to poke Harley's puffy cheek, his fingers were grabbed. But no matter what, we should still go and ask Hagrid clearly. Maybe he knows something, but no one believed him before, and he had a hard time speaking out. Let's go to Ravenclaw Tower to find Cho, and then go to Hagrid together. Pulled by Harley out of the common room, the two directly arrived at Ravenclaw Tower on the diagonal side of the castle through the room of requirement. Harley reached out and pulled the eagle knocker at the entrance, and a pleasant female voice sounded. I am the black son of a white father, a wingless bird, flying upward. At the moment of my birth, those who touch me weep, but once I am born, I vanish into thin air, into all things. The eagle knocker's questions were bizarre, sometimes philosophical, sometimes requiring clue analysis. To enter, one had to answer its question. But just as Harley was thinking, Lynn pulled her forward. The door's not open. The door's not open. Just as they were about to hit the door, Harley quickly spoke. But the next second, her eyes blurred, and she was directly inside the door. Open the door. Why open the door? Lynn looked at Harley with some confusion. Is there any need to answer such a stupid question? Saying that is a bit offensive. Harley showed a troubled expression. Is this question really stupid? The answer is smoke. If it had asked me, what simulation game gives you 100 draws upon login? I would have thought more highly of it. Harley blinked blankly. She couldn't understand Lynn's question at all. Like Gryffindor, boys couldn't go to the girls' dormitory. While Harley went to the dormitory to find Cho, Lynn walked into the Ravenclaw small library and started reading. Although it was called a school library, it held thousands of books. While it couldn't compare to the main Hogwarts library, it was still excellent, and it contained many private collections not found in the main library. These were mostly donated by Ravenclaw students, especially those from wizarding families. Lynn even saw a family tree of a wizarding family stuffed on a bookshelf, wondering which filial descendant had done such a thing. Lynn, let's go. After about 5 or 6 minutes, Harley poked her head into the small library's doorway. Cho was already waiting beside her, dressed for going out. The door disappeared. After walking out of the Ravenclaw common room, Harley looked down at the long spiral staircase with some distress, seeing the vanished door on one side of the wall. Of course the door disappears if no one is guarding it, but it doesn't matter at all. Both of you, give me your hands. With that, Lynn extended his hands to them. What are you going to do? The two girls, who handed their hands to Lynn, were slightly puzzled, but trusting Lynn, they did as they were told. Of course, we're jumping down. Wait. Before they could finish their refusal, Lynn pulled them, gently, flying, over the railing, and leapt into the empty space in the middle of the spiral staircase. Although both of them were excellent Quidditch players and were used to the feeling of flying in the air, even if their broomstick dives were much faster than this, the thrill was far less than what they were experiencing now. The feeling of helplessness from the rapid descent made them scream, but their panic had barely shown for 2 seconds when the security of solid ground suddenly returned to them. This is a fast way downstairs, right? The two girls, whose legs were a bit weak, clung tightly to Lynn's arms. Only after confirming they were steadily standing on the corridor floor did they suddenly find the strength to raise their fists and punch Lynn's head. Can't hit me. Lynn, who had instantly teleported away, smirked and walked ahead with his hands in his pockets. Lynn, you scoundrel. Don't run. Chatting and laughing, they left the castle. Upon arriving at Hagrid's hut, the somewhat breathless girls exhaled large clouds of white mist, and the rising heat made their cheeks flush, but in front of them, there was no trace of snow around Hagrid's stone house. As they got closer, they could feel a wave of heat even through the wooden door. I don't remember Hagrid being very afraid of the cold, do I? Harley said with some confusion. How did his house turn into an oven? Probably because Hagrid is an acquaintance of ours. That cold joke isn't funny at all. Harley stepped forward and knocked on the door, shouting inside, Hagrid, we're here, what are you doing in there? A clattering sound came from the stone house, and Hagrid seemed a bit flustered and rushed. After a while, the door of the hut finally opened. Hello there, no classes today. Hagrid tried to appear calm, but his words betrayed him. It's the weekend, Hagrid, no classes. Oh. Hagrid slapped his head. I got it wrong, haha. He chuckled awkwardly, then asked, is there something you need? Why aren't you inviting us in? Harley pouted, hands on her hips. Are you hiding something bad from us? Feeling guilty? Hagrid's expression was conflicted, but soon, he sighed and waved to the three. Come on, come in. Inside the house was like a different world from outside, a blazing bonfire burning fiercely, and the surging heat made Harley eagerly shed her cloak the moment she stepped inside. Even so, she was sweating on her forehead from the heat, and this was only a few seconds after entering. Hagrid, wearing a thick fur coat, dressed like this all year round, and the mere 50 to 60 degrees Celsius room temperature caused him no discomfort. Hagrid had just opened his mouth when Lynn's voice interrupted him. Hagrid, where did you pick up a dragon? Lynn's face showed surprise, and he spoke exaggeratedly, his acting slightly over the top. What dragon? Hagrid was confused by the question. It's just a dragon egg. Did a dragon mother lay her egg in the Forbidden Forest and then leave after it hatched? What an irresponsible mother. But it's just an egg, Hagrid hastily explained, a Norwegian ridgebacks. Such a small dragon would surely have a hard time surviving in the Forbidden Forest. Its neighbors must be either mountain trolls or manticores, at the very least ill-tempered graphorns. Wizards would be chased all over the forest if they got close, risking their lives. What are you talking about? Even well-trained wizards from the Ministry of Magic cannot easily approach, unless they want to die a violent death. But this is just an egg, Lynn, I won it in a card game a while ago. Hagrid tried to correct Lynn's nonsense, he was an honest man. Oh, so it wasn't a dragon mother who laid an egg and ran off, but rather a poacher who couldn't deal with this dragon egg, so he simply abandoned it in the Forbidden Forest to fend for itself. What a poor little fellow. Hagrid, after you found it, it refused to leave, right? And it built a nest deep in the Forbidden Forest. No one else can get close except you. Hagrid, feeling that Lynn's words were strange, scratched his hair, momentarily unsure how to explain it clearly to him. The Ministry of Magic would definitely capture uncontrolled wild dragons. Dragons are worth a lot of money, unless they don't have the ability to catch them, as their strength is limited, and they can't deal with the ferocious magical creatures in the Forbidden Forest. Hagrid, you definitely wouldn't accompany them to be their bodyguard, right? Hagrid froze in place for a few seconds, then asked Lynn in a hesitant voice, you are, right, aren't you? He blinked his innocent black eyes. I must have found this little fellow in the forest, right? Yes, you found it, and by then it had already built a nest and refused to leave. I think you're right, that must be how it happened. Hagrid slowly nodded. This little fellow adopted a mountain troll as its mother and lives next door. I picked up a dragon. Hagrid suddenly grinned. Yes, I picked up a dragon, and it refused to leave on its own. Come in for some tea. Hagrid greeted them warmly. Wisdom twinkled in his dark eyes. After turning the corner, Hagrid, who had been worried about not being able to raise this adorable little fellow, finally relaxed. Once inside the forest, it was his territory. Even if the Ministry of Magic had long arms, they couldn't reach into the Forbidden Forest. As for whether this little dragon would cause trouble at school, an adult dragon was only about 6 meters long. He could easily handle 5 of them with one hand, swinging them by their tails for fun. Even the venom of a ridgeback dragon was within his body's immunity. In the wizarding world, wild giants were top predators, just like large dragons. These creatures, averaging over 6 meters tall, made small and medium-sized dragons run as if they'd seen a ghost when they encountered them. If they ran too slowly, they'd end up on a spit roast. Dragons that could arm wrestle with giants were invariably massive creatures with wingspans of tens of meters. Although Hagrid was only a half-giant, his strength was not much inferior to a full giant's. In terms of overall physical prowess, an ordinary giant might not even be able to defeat him in a one-on-one fight. He could train mountain trolls that stood 4 or 5 stories high and weighed 50 tons. What was this little fellow? But Lynn's suggestion gave Hagrid an inexplicable sense of familiarity, as if something similar had happened in a past life, yet he couldn't recall the specifics when he thought about it carefully. I need iced lemon juice. Harley wiped the sweat from her forehead. She had already taken off her cloak and jacket, but it was still a bit unbearable. Perhaps you need an adapting lamp more. He pulled out an adapting lamp, zapped it a few times, and the oppressive stuffiness in the cabin instantly vanished. Oh, I forgot. We don't learn the flame freezing charm, Calories Deflecto, until next year, and Cho hasn't even learned it yet. By the way, Hagrid, we came to see you about something very important. At this, Harley's gaze turned to Hagrid, and her serious expression made Hagrid slightly straighten his posture. Have you encountered any difficulties, Harley? Hagrid was in a very good mood after his major concern had been perfectly resolved. It's about you, Hagrid. I've investigated and found out exactly what happened 50 years ago. We know you were definitely framed. Although acromantulas have terrible venom, the girl who died back then clearly didn't die from poisoning. I asked the ghosts and portraits of Hogwarts, especially Myrtle. It took me almost a month to convince her. At this point, Harley sighed inwardly. Sometimes being a girl wasn't so useful. Myrtle didn't like her, not for any other reason, but simply because she was pretty, and Myrtle didn't take kindly to her. She told me that before she died, she saw a pair of huge yellow eyes. This was clearly not the eyes of an acromantula, but some other terrifying monster. We all want to clear your name, Hagrid. You're our best friend, and we want to do something for you, to the best of our abilities. Even if 50 years have passed, as long as there's even a glimmer of possibility, we will find the real culprit and clear your name. Harley's clear voice was firm and powerful at this moment. Her emerald eyes reflected Hagrid's face, covered in a messy beard. Hagrid was slow to react for a long time, mechanically pouring tea into his mouth. His face, hidden by his beard, made it difficult to discern his expression. Aside from the crackling of the roaring bonfire, the cabin fell silent. That was 50 years ago. Hagrid mumbled weakly. It's been so long, hasn't it? Another dead silence followed, and Hagrid's lips trembled slightly. That girl's death had nothing to do with me, it wasn't me, nor Aragog. He closed his eyes in pain, his fists quietly clenching. Those fools at the Ministry of Magic are a bunch of brainless fools. Suddenly, Hagrid slammed his fist on the wooden table, making the entire stone cabin jump. The black dragon egg, perched over the warm bonfire, bounced in the flames and rolled deeper into the fire. They didn't investigate at all. They just listened to one side of the story and said it was me. I spent a week in Azkaban. Hagrid suddenly flinched. If it weren't for Professor Dumbledore, I might have died on that island long ago. Can you tell us who framed you back then? Seeing progress, Harley tentatively continued the conversation. It was the Slytherin prefect back then, Hagrid grumbled. Called Tom Riddle, a despicable fellow full of lies. But what good does that do? That Tom was an excellent student whom all the professors liked, except Professor Dumbledore. Everyone believed what he said. Hagrid grabbed a small barrel of alcohol from a nearby cupboard, crushed the lid, and poured about half a barrel into his mouth, exhaling a pungent alcoholic breath. And I'm a half-giant, as you probably know. Half-giant wizards are very discriminated against outside. They all think I'm as volatile and barbaric as a giant. Only Professor Dumbledore trusted me. He believed I was innocent and defended and vouched for me. He also gave me the position of gamekeeper, so I wouldn't have to wander outside but would have a home to live in. But 50 years have passed, and that scoundrel Tom is long gone, no one knows where. I haven't heard of any famous wizard named Tom, except for the owner of the Leaky Cauldron, and he's a good man. So, Tom Riddle, Hagrid, did you have any conflict with him before? Cho asked softly, feeling a bit confused. No. Hagrid shook his head directly. I didn't even speak to him, but the reason isn't hard to guess. Hagrid drained the remaining half-barrel of alcohol in one gulp, wiped his mouth, and said, Hogwarts back then was different from now. Slytherin was much worse, and life for half-blood wizards was tough, let alone a half-giant like me. That Tom was also of mixed blood, but he was very cunning, gathering a large following. Perhaps to integrate into pure blood circles and climb the ranks, he targeted those of mixed heritage even more than others. Professor Dumbledore must have seen through his true nature back then, which is why he didn't believe his lies. But unfortunately, there was only one Professor Dumbledore. Professor Sprout was also there at the time. Although she didn't step forward, she helped me a lot when I became gamekeeper. I don't blame her, she had only recently arrived at Hogwarts and was just an assistant professor. She took risks to help me. It wasn't until Professor Dumbledore became principal that no one in the school pointed fingers at me, calling me a murderer. That's all I know. I probably can't help you much. To be honest, I had already given up myself. Hearing that you want to speak up for me, I'm truly touched. A tear sparkled in Hagrid's eye. No matter what happens, I thank you. Hagrid pulled out a tablecloth-sized handkerchief from his pocket and blew his nose loudly. Actually, you should spend more time on your studies. Don't let my affairs take up too much of your time, really. Just having your concern makes me very happy, children. Hagrid managed a small smile, looking at them gently. Go enjoy your weekend, go on. I'll take care of myself, and you should take care of yourselves too. Don't do anything dangerous. After leaving Hagrid's place, Lynn, Harley, and Cho spent a peaceful period of school life. Although Hagrid provided the name of the person who framed him, there was too little information about Tom Riddle. All they could find was that he was once a very outstanding student at Hogwarts, with 5 or 6 trophies bearing his name in the Hogwarts trophy room. Most ironically, during his time at school, he received the award for special services to the school and the award for magical merit because he identified Hagrid and found the so-called culprit. However, information about him after he left Hogwarts was completely blank. Logically, a genius like him, who was so brilliant during his school years, would surely shine after graduation, either achieving academic success or rising rapidly within the Ministry of Magic. He had many followers, and those from pure-blood wizarding families would certainly provide him with much assistance, as he had shown excellent leadership during his school years. The investigation into this matter reached a stalemate, and Harley and Cho had to temporarily set it aside, as the final exams were approaching, and the professors assigned more and more overwhelming homework. Harley, in particular, was almost busier than Lynn. The Quidditch finals were in the next couple of days, and she still had to make time for Quidditch training while not neglecting her studies. Moreover, Harley had promised Snape that she would participate in the next Potion Championship, requiring her to spend several hours each weekend for extra lessons. But she wasn't the only busy one. Lynn's roommates had recently started looking at Neville in a new light. It wasn't because he had another brilliant performance in class, but because the originally chubby Neville had visibly lost a lot of weight in the months following Christmas. Although Neville still had a round face, his jawline was now clearly visible, and his previously well-fitting robes were now a bit loose. Fortunately, he had shot up several inches in height, so he could still carry the clothes. Neville, why did you suddenly decide to lose weight? One evening, after Neville came out of the shower, Seamus smacked his lips, his eyes scanning Neville, who was only wearing shorts as he exited the bathroom. You actually have abs now. Seriously. He reached out and patted Neville's stomach. The belly that once rippled when patted now subtly revealed the firm lines of abs. Just exercise more. Neville gave a simple smile, grabbing a long-sleeved t-shirt and putting it on. The days of winter snow and spring chill were over, but with Britain's terrible weather, you couldn't expect to wear short sleeves for many days even in summer. If Seamus, you also spent a few hours exercising every day, you would definitely, you already are. I'm just skinny. Seamus pulled up his shirt and patted his ribs. Can't you see I'm just skin and bones? But you're strong. If you punch me, I guarantee I'll die for you to see. Ha 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 ha. Dean laughed uncontrollably from the side. In that case, Neville would definitely kneel and beg you not to die. But isn't it obvious? Dean kicked Seamus's butt. If a boy suddenly shows astonishing willpower and constantly strives to become strong and excellent, it must be because he has someone he likes. Tell us, Neville, who are you planning to confess to? Parvati or Parvati and Harley, the only pretty first-year girls in our house. Maybe it's someone from another house. Isn't Parvati's sister in Ravenclaw? Hufflepuff also has two very pretty girls this year. Neville's face flushed slightly. He shook his head and said, no. I'm not trying to confess to any girl. Lynn gave me a gift for Christmas. He said I have a lot of talent in that area, and if I want to become even stronger than my mom and dad in the future, learning this might be more helpful. Secret training. Seamus and Dean exchanged glances, then quickly moved closer to Neville and slung their arms over his shoulders. What kind of secret training? Let us see. It's nothing, really. Lynn found me a special teacher, but I also have to thank Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick for their help. The professors prepared sparring partners for me. Neville grabbed a belt from his bed. It had a small pouch fixed to it. He reached inside and pulled out a short sword that looked very high-tech. Famous blade. Electro-light orb. Lynn said it has a built-in computer, radar. As long as you hold it, you can become a master swordsman, but there's an energy usage limit. For training, it can last about an hour. Neville twirled the blade. He was already very proficient with it. But don't worry, it's not sharpened. As Lynn said, it's a kind of educational toy. Educational toy. Dean's face wrinkled as he sarcastically complained, whose educational toy is a knife? Are they training swordsmen or assassins from childhood? But, Neville, we are wizards. Wizards use wands. Are you going to rush up and hack people with a knife? Seamus curiously touched the blade of the electro-light orb, but didn't feel anything special about it. Why don't you try casting spells at me? Neville stepped back a few paces. You stand by the opposite wall and then use a spell on me, or even just shoot sparks. Really? Suddenly eager to try, Seamus and Dean quickly retreated to the end of the dormitory, standing against the wall. Let's shoot sparks at you. Casting spells isn't ideal, even though my spells don't explode anymore. After fixing his careless habits, Seamus's spell casting stability was now very high. He wouldn't just blow himself up and get covered in ash. Neville, are you ready? I'm ready. Neville held the electrolyte orb in his left hand but didn't press the activation button. If activated, the blade of the electrolyte orb would be covered in yellow energy, but its material was very strong, harder than steel, and very light. Then, take this. Seamus shouted, and a beam of red sparks flew from his wand tip, shooting towards Neville. But with a flash of the blade, the sparks that had just approached Neville were instantly cut apart. Cool. Seamus and Dean exclaimed. The sparks they shot were no slower than spells, making it feel like they arrived in a flash of light, yet Neville easily cut them down. Actually, it's not bad. I can hit up to 3 spells at once. I don't believe it. Dean loudly declared. Unless you let me try too. Alright. Neville wasn't as shy now. After developing confidence, he was completely different from his former self. Then be careful. Seamus and Dean gripped their wands and shot 2 sparks at Neville. Still holding the blade in his left hand, Neville, standing still, swung the electrolyte orb, precisely hitting the incoming sparks without exception. What are you doing? The dormitory door had been pushed open at some point, and a wide-eyed Ron stared dumbfounded at the 3 people in the room. Neville can block spells with a knife, Ron. So cool. So amazing. Seamus and Dean excitedly said, why don't you try too? Shoot sparks at Neville, he says he can block up to 3 spells at once. Then I'll join. Ron quickly pulled out his wand and stood next to Seamus and Dean, while Neville was also ready on the opposite side. Ready, start. 2, swish swish, red lights flashed, and Neville once again dispersed the sparks. Seamus turned his head in confusion. Ron, what are you doing? Ron's face turned red under several gazes. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything for a long time. Boring. Ron, with a sour expression, unhappily put away his wand, pulled open the toilet door, and slammed it shut, whether due to an urgent need to pee or poop. Could it be that Ron forgot how to use the phlegrochromatique? Maybe he suddenly got a stomachache. Dean said uncertainly. They taught this right after the Lumos charm. He couldn't have forgotten, could he? Thanks for watching.